Okay, here you go.
That we have to do 1 year reflections on an escalated genocide? Weird as shit, right? All right, just want to make sure. I'm a little late today, so I'm not going to repeat too much of what has already been said by my other comrades. But I just want to do some quick and friendly reminders. Just a quick reminder that not only does the US government not see Palestinians as human, 240,000 people estimated have been murdered by the imaginary state's occupation forces and our tax dollars. But not only that, the US government doesn't even see its own citizens as human beings. Period. Now, why do I say that? We have spent countless billions on the imaginary state, which is just a glorified military outpost for the United States. But the citizens of that imaginary state, they have free healthcare. Your tax dollars pay for that. They have free college. Your tax dollars pay for that. They have housing and infrastructure. And guess what? Your tax dollars paid for that. And then on top of all of that, we're giving them additional billions to carry out a genocide on US and the Western imperialist behalf. Let's be very clear. That is so clear that Anthony Blinken has been said to be ordering airstrikes in Gaza. They're spending billions of tax dollars on that instead of making a one-time $20 billion investment to house every single unhoused person in this country. They're spending billions of dollars on that while they cut your food stamps and your SNAP. They're spending billions of dollars on that while they let the child tax credit expire. And now they're trying to shove it back in your face like, look at this amazing thing we're doing. Please. Just a great time to remind you that we spent $300 million per day every day in Afghanistan. That we spend $800 billion per year. And that's just the budget we know about. That does not include the black budget. We spend $800 billion per year on being the world police while you can't pay your rent. You can't get hurricane assistance down in North Carolina. But somehow, some way, they can find a way to send billions of dollars over to the imaginary state. They can send $300 million over to Ukraine, but they ain't got no money out of your tax dollars, out of your payroll taxes, to make Americans' lives better. This is a great time to remind you that international law says it is codified into law that occupied people have a right to self defense. This is a great time to remind you that they spent a majority of your childhood trying to get you to relate to rich white men who literally overthrew the government because they had to pay 3 pennies on the dollar more per pound of tea. They told you that was justified. It's a great time to remind you that we are all human beings. Not only is it not normal to watch a live streamed escalated genocide for 365 days, it is also not normal for our government to literally ignore the will of its people and continue to call itself a democracy. This is a great time to remind you that it has been 365 days of expansionist, genocidal, disgusting warfare and 76 years of ethnic cleansing on the land that is Palestine. Liberation is inevitable, and Palestine will be free. We will all be free in our lifetimes.
Very well
Uh,
spoken.
oh yeah. What's up, guys? Welcome to this episode of Tea Time with Andre and Tired Peasant. I'm Andre, Tired Peasant. Unfortunately, can't be with us today. Her laptop isn't working and her internet is acting up too. So, that's so unfortunate. I told her, just take your time you need to get right. So much on her plate right now, and yeah. Um, so, how you doing, Matt?
I'm doing pretty well. Hey, everybody, my name is Matt Luttrell. You can find me at decolonize union underscore KY on social media. I am from Kentucky. I'm an organizer with the DSA, with some of their working groups, and with a lot of other organizations, including locally. Nice to be on here.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, yeah, man. Technical difficulties, man, but glad we was able to get you on here. I got some questions for you. The first question is, you was well, when you talked while we were waiting. Well, initially waiting for Tyra Peasant to come on, but she wasn't able to. You said that you used to be a part of an Amazon labor union, right? Campaign.
Yes. Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, our campaign in Kentucky was in a small town called Campbellsville, which is one of the first Amazon company towns, right? So one
Mm-hmm.
of the company like we used to have like the former biggest corporation, Fruit of the Loom. They started in this town. They
Oh
started in
wow.
Campbellsville, Kentucky. And then whenever NAFTA was passed by Bill Clinton and the Democrats at the time, um, Fruit of the Loom moved out, just like so much of the other industry that created, the crisis of the Rust Belt and all of the outsourcing that we have. So they just packed up and moved to Honduras, and then in 1999, Amazon was just starting out. Um, so Jeff Bezos was looking for the best place to put one of his first fulfillment centers. And Kentucky, because of how broke they just became, um, they decided to offer every corporation all of this money and tax benefits and even free land. So the city of Campbellsville made Amazon that offer, and then they set up their first warehouse here, their first fulfillment center here. Um, I think like the second actual fulfillment center, but then they sort of used our town as guinea pigs, and they cemented themselves as the best place to work. They throw their money around into the school system and everywhere else. They make people rely on them. And sure, there's other jobs you can get besides Amazon, but every other job will work you to death for a lot less than what Amazon pays.
Wow. Wow. So how much? Okay, how much did you guys get paid per hour? Like,
Yeah, so when I was there, I made 16.50 an hour.
oh, okay.
Maybe about 17, but it was because like 15.30 that was my uh wage that I made normally, and then for working night shift, I got a bit extra, so like a dollar
Yeah,
50 extra.
yeah, they do that. Yeah, that happened to me too. Um, so tell us like how you and other people decided, to do a union. Like how that became reality.
Yeah. So, I worked at a factory before I came to Amazon. I worked there for quite a few years. Before that, when I was a kid, I worked in like local agriculture, so like tobacco, hay, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, yeah. Child labor is very common around here, and unfortunately, I had to do it quite a bit as a kid to help make ends meet.
Yeah,
Um, because single mother, family, right?
yeah,
Had to do what she
right,
had to do.
right, right.
But yeah, I had that job, and then COVID came. March 2022, I got laid off, and then whenever they finally brought us back to work, like half a year later, um, yeah, all that time without getting unemployment checks or anything, and then they
Oh
call you back.
wow.
Then they call you back to work. Um, Soon after that, my unemployment got sorted out, and I got all the back pay and all that stuff. Just Kentucky was overwhelmed, right? Like so many other states, their
Yeah,
unemployment system just crashed. So much
yeah.
fraud
Florida
and
too.
everything like that.
Hmm.
And when they brought us back to work, they started working us these suicide shifts. So 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, and 8 hours on Sunday. We did that for another half a year.
Oh my
So
God.
then I just got completely burnt out. I had to go. And I also realized some things about the company. The reason that they were working us so hard all the time was literally because they got caught in a price fixing scandal. They were fixing the prices of brake hoses. So, yeah, I worked at a Toyota plant, so a Toyota parts subsidiary. So
Oh,
technically a separate company, but
okay.
financed and bankrolled by Toyota. They got
Okay.
caught price fixing. They had to pay out a huge settlement, and we were just making up for that. We were just making up for that, and that's when I first started to see myself as kind of a victim of capitalism. That's
Oh
when I
yeah.
started to get really fucking uncomfortable with the way the system was.
Yeah.
And then a few months, soon after that, I got a job at the Amazon warehouse, and what was in the spotlight at the beginning of 2021? That was the Amazon labor union. That was an Amazon campaign that was really hot in Bessemer, Alabama. So we got to
Yeah.
see
I
people
remember
who
that.
also live in the South organizing, as well as Amazon employees expressing interest everywhere. And so I had always been kind of a free thinking type of individual. So I did my research on that and decided, like, hey, this seems like it could work. This seems purposeful. This seems like it could be a really meaningful way for me to actually affect change, the changes that I want to see in
Mhm.
society. So soon after that, I joined up with the IWW, and I started getting mentorship from them. And at that time, I would have considered myself like an anarcho syndicalist, the IWW ideology, right? And
Yeah.
eventually, with their mentorship, I worked up the courage and the knowledge to go and start talking to other employees. And then because IWW doesn't have an actual chapter in Kentucky, it was disbanded a long time ago, just membership reasons, And then we got on board with this union called the Machinist Union, the ones that are on strike at Boeing, right? That same union, and
Oh, okay.
yeah, they were very interested, or at least they appeared pretty interested in helping us organize at Amazon. Um, and so that's when we started to build our organizing committee at the shop. That's when I started taking additional roles at Amazon that would allow me to be able to talk to workers as often as I should, to earn their trust. And I essentially got the safety role where I had to go and talk to workers for a couple of hours every night and ask them about their safety concerns. And of course, I was militant. I would always let people know about their concern. I would let people know why their concern wasn't being addressed because management is not on their side. I was radicalizing people on the shop floor, recruiting for the union and all that stuff. And eventually we got to the point where we started collecting cards for the machinist union. And like towards the like April of 2022, things had got quite big. And then we eventually started getting in contact with the Amazon labor union, and they were making us all of these offers, and they were sort of the big Amazon organization, that was in the spotlight, and that seemed so legit, and that seemed like they were um, gonna conquer this thing, right? Conquer this company. They were gonna make some real change. So, they made us an offer that we couldn't refuse, and then we sort of held a vote about which union we were going to affiliate with. We kind of got tired of the machinist union because they were sort of micromanaging us. They were being pretty ineffective. and they were sort of holding us back from a lot of the activities like we wanted to do, like the walkouts and the pickets and all of the mutual aid we wanted to do for workers. The machinists kept disagreeing with us on that. And turns out we just got connected to, um, you know, one of the sort of members of that labor aristocracy, somebody who didn't really have a whole lot of experience um, organizing. They were just kind of a grifter. So they were sort of leading us down the wrong path. So then we voted to join the Amazon Labor Union and started organizing with them. And of course, I started facing retaliation around that time from Amazon. They started writing me up. They started doing all this stuff till eventually they could fire me.
Wow, man, that's crazy. That is crazy, man. Um, yeah. This is not part of my question, but so there's nothing like you can't like sue. Well, not sue, but like you know get some kind of like retribution from that from Amazon
So
fired you.
yeah, so I when I was there, I stayed on top of it. So I was very familiar with the legal process. I was very familiar with how to maximize my rights as far as that goes. And so every time I experienced retaliation, surveillance, anything like that, I was in communication with the union, and they would always help me file a charge against Amazon. So every time,
Okay.
so it was like tick tick for tat, right? So
Yeah.
they
Okay.
would
Yeah.
they would retaliate. I would file a charge. They would
Yeah.
retaliate,
Yeah.
and
Okay. I got you. I got you.
so whenever I did become unemployed, like the first thing I did after they walked me out was that I called the Amazon Labor Union's lawyer up. His name is Seth Goldstein, and Seth and I had this conversation. Yeah, I was in tears, right? Like I just I was just so overwhelmed. Like, I'm fired now. What am I gonna do now? How am I gonna keep this thing going when I don't work here anymore? Right. So I was in tears, overwhelmed, and Seth Goldstein was great. Um, had the NLRB lawyers coming to meet with me all the time to take my affidavits and get the process rolling. And so, about a year later, I would finally get my day in court with Amazon, and they decided that they wanted to settle. They decided that they wanted to settle with me, and
Okay.
so then we had a settlement agreement, and that went through. Everybody signed off on the settlement agreement, and then I had to realize that the labor board is not even really on your side either, because
Oh. Oh. Wow.
they actually objected to our settlement.
What?
They did not like the fact that me and Amazon were going to settle. And so that took another year because they appealed the settlement,
Uh
and then
huh.
we had to wait for an actual judge to look at it and say it was okay or not. Well, not a judge, but the general counsel, the people who run the NLRB. Um,
Wow.
and yeah, so it took over a year, and then I got my settlement in July. So
This year, right?
yeah,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
I was just struggling all that time until recently.
Oh man. Like, okay, how? Okay, from the time that they withheld your settlement, withheld agreeing to your settlement till July, like, how did you have to rely on mutual aid, or you had to take some side jobs or gig type jobs or
I
stuff
had
like
to
that?
rely on mutual aid because
Okay.
so whenever I first got fired from Amazon, they were contesting my unemployment claims. Like, so there was about 6 months until I got my unemployment, till I started getting my unemployment regularly. And
Okay.
so in 2023, unemployment. I mean, so the back unemployment I got at the beginning of 2023 was okay.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty much equal to like 24 weeks of unemployment, the maximum. And
Okay.
then in 2023 though, for that year, the state actually passed a law where they said you can only get 12 weeks of unemployment. They cut the benefit in half. They cut the
What?
unemployment benefit in half. Yeah.
Damn, man.
And so 2023 was just such a struggle. I had to rely on mutual aid, constantly asking people for mutual aid. And thankfully, my partner, now my fiance,
Congratulations.
she's worked at Amazon the whole time, so she went through all of this shit with me,
Oh, okay.
and
Yeah.
supported me through it. And but money was always tight. Like we were almost
Yeah.
homeless like several
Oh,
times,
wow. Wow,
struggling to
man.
pay the rent and everything. Even with her income, just because of how expensive things were.
Yeah. The crazy thing is, you live in Kentucky. You think the South would be at least more reasonable than up north, but yeah, even I live in Delta part of Louisiana, man. Like, yeah, it's everything's expensive here as well.
Mm.
Uh,
So like in this area, we're kind of fortunate because like rent prices and stuff are not too bad out here. But the thing
yeah.
is, like the grocery stores in rural areas, they love to overcharge, and
Yeah, same
they get
here.
away with it.
Same
Gas,
here, man.
everything.
Yeah, same here. My second question to you, Matt, how were the conditions in your Amazon warehouse?
Oh, they were horrible. It was
Okay.
constantly like sweltering heat in there. And yeah, you had water coolers that a lot of the time people didn't want to even drink out of because they weren't cleaned as regularly as they should be, and also because they were just pretty far away from you. So you'd be in your work area, this big gigantic work area with multiple floors. You'd have this scanner that you use telling you where you're supposed to go all the
Oh,
time,
okay. Yeah, I know.
but it would just be bouncing you around. So like 1 minute you'd be on the first floor, and then like a few minutes later your scanner would take you to like the fifth floor or the third floor, and
Oh
just
shit.
keep bouncing you around the warehouse. So that's why an Amazon pickers walk like 20 miles a day, more than that. Um,
I heard Christian Smalls talk about that. He said if you have a gym membership and you work at Amazon, you might well cancel it
mhm.
because you're gonna do some big cardio.
Oh yeah, and yeah, so constantly sweltering and all that stuff, and you know, and so many of the other big complaints were with like the way that items were stocked inside the warehouse. So you had these like flimsy cardboard bins, and mostly what we did at our warehouse was clothing, so apparel. And
Okay.
so they would overstuff these cardboard bins with apparel, and so people would constantly like sprain their wrists and stuff trying to get them open, just struggling
Wow.
to get them open and find your item within the
Wow.
time limit so that you can actually make your production rate. And you don't make your production rate, they don't give you too many excuses for that. They really don't. Um, so a lot of people, Amazon would purposely do this. They want
Yeah.
people to get
They,
out of there as fast as possible. They
yeah.
and then yeah, it's just a revolving door at that place. They're constantly looking for a reason to fire you. That's why they track you so rigorously with these algorithms, right? If if you get wrote up at Amazon, it's not even a manager that writes you up most of the time. It's the fucking machine. It's the computer that's writing your ass up for whatever happened.
Wow.
They raise a red flag, and then you get to talk to your manager and review it, but they like I said, they don't give you too many excuses. They're just trying to fire you.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a friend that used to work at a furniture store, and they really had the same like type of system. Like you have to meet, you had to meet a certain rate,
Mm.
and if you don't, you get rolled up. Yeah, man. Yeah. That's just a ploy to fire you. See, the longer you stay, they have to like pay you more, like a rate,
Mm.
give you a raise each year. Yeah. Um. So um like so so okay, was that like the main reason why you guys decided to unionize because of the just the workload was tough or
Well, yeah, that was very much a part of it, but also
okay.
because of how expensive everything was, and then our wages were not increasing so that we could live comfortably. Like people were, yeah. you understand that out in these rural areas, you have people that live very far away from work, and
Yes.
they have
Yeah.
to drive on these curvy roads to get to work and shit like
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
people were not making enough to fill up their fucking gas tank and get to work.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and that expensive that real crisis of everything getting so expensive that really started to happen like after the Ukraine war started. Um, that's when we noticed everything getting so expensive. Because before that, we kind of had deflation, right? Where everything was getting a little bit cheaper during COVID in
Yeah.
2021.
Yeah.
Um,
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man. You're right. Yeah. Yeah. When you live in a rural area, guys, I know most of you live in the cities. Like, yeah, like it takes me about 20 miles to get to work. So, yeah, I definitely understand that.
hmm.
Um, yeah.
And one of our
Um,
other major issues was that like Amazon would constantly force people to train in different departments, and then they would never give them anything extra to compensate for that. So you're intrinsically more valuable to the company the more jobs that you know how to do, and the more jobs that you can do in one night or at one time, and
yeah.
and the company doesn't compensate you for that in any way whatsoever. And then if you know a bunch of jobs, they try to recruit you for something called the learning ambassador position, which is where like you'd be in charge um, of training new employees and sort of like mentoring them for while they're in training, um, and bouncing back and forth between jobs. But there's no extra compensation for that either. So
Wow.
everything Amazon does is they're trying to squeeze free labor out of you.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
those were our like main demands of our campaign is we wanted compensation for every job that you know how to do. We wanted a $20 an hour minimum wage. We wanted a new tier that was created because Amazon does a tier system. So if you're just a basic employee, you're called a tier one, right? So you're tier one, and then the next tier doesn't go up until you're like a assistant manager or a process assistant, and then they get paid slightly more. Um, they do the duties of a manager without getting compensated like a manager.
It's by intent.
Yeah, but we wanted to create a new tier where the learning ambassador, where people who are involved in safety, and all that stuff would get paid like a couple of dollars an hour extra.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, of course, we wanted to correct the working conditions because the reason working conditions were so terrible is because Amazon was so focused on every other warehouse that they forget about their old warehouses.
Mm-hmm.
So you have warehouses that have a lot of automation these days where the employees aren't really walking a lot, where they're not really traveling a lot. And a lot of those have air conditioning that is adequate, or fans and ventilation that is adequate. But Amazon just completely forgets about a warehouse that was built in 1999, and they give us the status, legacy status. And it also doesn't help that, like, 10 years before I even came along, Amazon management was constantly threatening to close the plant down if if they did not meet production, right? If they didn't work themselves to death, Amazon would threaten to shut down the plant all the time. And you know, you sort of had a lot of older people at that Amazon warehouse. So many older folks because young folks don't really stick around this area,
Yeah. That's
unless
right.
they
Yeah.
have to. So I have a lot of articles on my link tree for everybody to check out, about the Amazon company town and how Campbellsville is. Um, you can learn a lot there.
Yeah. Yeah, guys. Go follow Matt on the bottom of the ticker. You can see I got his handle right there. Decolonize Unions underscore Kentucky. Yeah, follow him on Twitter and Blue Sky and check out his link tree and read about that. So yeah, man. Yeah, that's crazy. Like those demands that you guys asked for, to be honest with you, were this Amazon should have just said okay. Like
Hmm.
really, it should even got to a point where like you know like where to y'all basically, well, y'all have to like fight for it, like $20 an hour. That's a no brainer. Like Amazon makes thousands of dollars per second. Like
Mhm.
they damn near a monopoly. Like in the working condition, like yeah, man, like y'all need like a place built in 1999. Like it's 2024,
Mhm.
and obviously climate change. It's way different now than it was in 1999. So like these just simple demands that any job should apply, but profits
Yeah.
first, man.
We also wanted we also wanted, to establish that tier system, and we wanted like some crucial upgrades to the ventilation and the HVAC system. We wanted to get a new HVAC because the one was not working so well. We would ask Amazon to keep the shipping doors shut so that all of the cold air that they were trying to bring into the facility wouldn't just go right out. Because you can't
Mm-hmm.
really cool a facility down if all the air is just coming out the fucking doors. Um, and when I had that safety job, people started to realize that like I was fighting for them, that other members of the safety committee that were along with us, they were fighting with them, and we constantly opposed Amazon. One of our biggest victories on the campaign was that Amazon was trying to bring in this policy where they were going to make everybody wear like steel toe or composite toe shoes. And at our facility, that was actually like never necessary
Yeah,
because there's
it
not
close.
really there's not heavy stuff. It's just clothing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, close. Yeah.
And so if anybody's ever tried to walk all night long in steel or composite toe shoes, oh, you know the pain. You
Woo.
know, and people there, like, they anticipated the pain, and so that was our very a very popular pressure campaign that we had, was to stop those shoes, and everybody was on board with stopping the implementation of that policy, and we were able to delay it by like a year. And then Amazon just eventually decided, hey, we don't give a fuck. Hey, we don't give a fuck what y'all think. You have to follow this policy because that's the only way they get the OSHA tax write off. Because Amazon gives each employee a credit to buy shoes from the website that they own called
Mm.
Zappos, and you get a very
Oh,
very limited selection of footwear.
of course.
Very
Yeah, you
limited. A
should.
lot of the time, you can't even find your size for whatever shoes that look
Wow.
that look somewhat comfortable to you. You know.
Yeah, 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 yeah. My
So
job is the same thing.
yeah, and then July runs around, like a couple months before I got fired, and that's when I started having to wear the safety shoes, and oh, it was so painful all the time.
Yeah, I know the feeling. And I used to work 12-hour shifts,
Mm.
so yeah, man, yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know who made still. I know why they make steel toes, but like, man, I wish they just made them more comfortable at least. Like, find a way or something.
Mm.
uh, yeah. Um. Okay, now we're gonna get to politics a little bit. Um,
Mm.
what side of the political spectrum you on? Like Marxist, communist, socialist.
I mean, I tend to look at things through a Marxist point of view, but as we were kind
Okay,
of discussing in the back room, there's like
yeah,
the most up to date train of Marxian thought is that of seeing things through an indigenous and black perspective, the perspective of colonized peoples, and you want to stay in line with that instead of like the other forms of Marxism, which still have a lot of problems with chauvinism and being centric to Europeans, settlers. Um,
right,
and people who don't really want to abolish the United States of America, they just want to change the economic system. Like they're just fighting capitalism, and they're not really fighting the system that existed before, the system of colonialism that has been here.
right, right. And, yeah. You can say I align more on Marxist too. Marxist
Mm,
too. Um. Okay, about race. A guy on ATP Network. His name's Smurf. You probably seen him before. he says that race. He don't believe in race, and and every time he thinks about it, it makes his blood boil because he
Mm.
believes. He one of those people that believes we're all one person.
Mm.
Um, what is your thoughts on that? Do you believe race is actually a thing, or it's just a concept?
I mean, race is fake. It is
Okay,
fake, but
it is.
the thing that makes it real is that there's a whole system of oppression based on that fake concept, and so you really have to fight against that. Like, we
Yeah,
see so many organizations. Most leftist organizations do not have a correct take about indigenous sovereignty and black sovereignty and race. And so what happens is their membership just drops. Like DSA, we're always sitting at like 4%, roughly 4% of a black membership.
yeah,
And unfortunately, like most of those black members are driven out of the organization because they can't trust white leftists. They can't
right,
trust white leftists, and so they go and join like an exclusively black organization or an anarchist organization or PSL or Frizzo, which are also organizations that they eventually become disenfranchised with because in the
right.
PSL, like one of the comparisons between the DSA and PSL is PSL, you cannot speak your mind. You cannot challenge any narrative that leadership wants you to follow. Like it's a bureaucracy. It's kind of a bureaucratic centralist system. But
Correct.
In the DSA, at least you can challenge that structure. And so we have so many chapters and branches and working groups that are constantly changing the politics of DSA to be more left wing, to be more in solidarity with Palestinians and with the struggles of all colonized people.
Yeah, right. What do you okay about DSA? What do you think they need to do, like, to change it to make it more inclusive to black folks and other color other races as well?
Mm. So like um, when you look at regular DSA, and then you look at there's a campus organization for DSA called YDSA.
Mm-hmm.
YDSA has been sort of at the forefront of all of the encampments and all that stuff. YDSA is so based and so good on all of the answers to the contradictions that we face that YDSA almost got their funding cut from DSA.
Oh,
They
okay.
almost cut off all their funding and everything because YDSA fundamentally is good and they're
Mm-hmm.
already there with the good politics, but you can't really make a revolution from campus. So as we've seen DSA sort of recruit more young union members and more diverse people, like one of the best people at DSA is Black Red Guard. Like he has this he's a Maoist in the DSA, but he's also like Pan Africanist and New Africanist and yeah, he really inspired me to sort of change my view that it is possible to change things if you do work within these organizations. But
Mm-hmm.
DSA needs first of all to get black leadership in charge
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
organization. Some of the chapters are already good about that, but unfortunately, you have chapters like New York City DSA, which is still like playing footsies with the Zionists,
Ah,
right?
yeah.
Um, and,
Yeah.
and
You go.
we've got more leftists, like genuine leftists, elected to positions in the DSA. But to me, it's not happening fast enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you're right, man. Yeah, like in order for things to progress, yeah, I know this kind of like our topic, but that's like saying with independent media, for so long it's been only like white political commentators
Mm.
doing this. Savvy Sav, she said herself, that's why her and Nick and them came later on, because they said the right thing, but sometimes you need a black perspective, like
Hmm.
you know, you know. So yeah, like okay, okay, I'm still on DSA. I know you remember Forced to Vote, right?
Hmm.
Net. Um, what do you think? Why do you think most leftists didn't go along with it?
Um. Oh, hold on. I think I lost you. Hello?
Hello.
Okay, okay. I lost you for a second. Um. Forced to vote. You're talking about the uncommitted movement, right?
Yes,
Okay. Yeah.
yes, uncommitted.
So there were a lot of DSA chapters that were pretty big into the uncommitted movement. However, like the people who don't go along with uncommitted, I am challenged to call them leftists. Like because they're not pushing back against
Right.
the establishment. Like if you're dead set on getting Harris elected with all of the evidence that they're not even that different from the Republicans, what what is your major malfunction?
Yeah. What's the point? Exactly.
Yeah, but also a lot of things with the DSA is like because of how sort of centrist DSA has been over the years. Like Palestinian solidarity organizations don't even really fuck with the DSA. That is slowly changing. Like some chapters are now working with Palestinian solidarity orgs, but it's just taken so long again. And I wish the DSA would focus more um, on mutual aid. So
Yeah.
we have so many working groups in the DSA. We have tenants. We have the Emergency Tenants Organizing Committee. That's part of the Housing Justice Coalition. Um, we have Emergency Workplace Organizing Committee, which is what I'm a part of, where we take in workers who reach out to us and they're looking to start a union campaign or a pressure campaign or just something to fight back against the boss. And so we take them on and we mentor them and we help them build up their movement. But what is severely neglected again is the mutual aid. So all these other working groups are kind of doing okay, but the mutual aid working group has just a few members and they don't even get to do a lot, right?
Yeah.
They don't have much of a presence at all. And that really shows where people are at with their politics. Are you looking at politics through a not a question for you, but it's the
Okay.
question of if you're looking at your politics through political domination or if you're looking at it through political impact. I mean through human impact, like what you can actually change, and the human impact of what you're fighting for is going to be. If you're
Hmm.
focused on humans and community, you will do mutual aid work
Yeah.
and
That's
you will
correct.
support mutual aid and you will realize that mutual aid should really be the foundation of any type of organizing that we're doing because people need help and they need
Yeah.
community and they need resources and
Exactly.
without any of that stuff how are you going to win hearts and minds because that's the biggest thing you got to win people over you got to persuade them to come to your side and we're not doing a good enough job of doing that. Like you have DSA chapters that don't even really canvas in black neighborhoods,
Wow.
and that was a, that
That,
was
that
a that was a big complaint of black leftists when the Bernie Sanders campaign was going
yeah.
on is that they would not see DSA folks canvassing for Bernie in their neighborhood.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's why it's what you say 4%, something like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
roughly.
Yeah. Why 4%? Like you know, like how you gonna build a movement? How you won't change if you don't include the one of the most marginalized groups in this country? Like you know,
Yeah,
Yeah.
white people do not have a revolutionary tradition to work off of, but
Mm-hmm.
black folks and every other group has a revolutionary tradition that taught them how to organize. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
one of my biggest insights from like Amazon organizing was when I met up with the Amazon organizers in North Carolina. So their campaign out in the Durham area, um, it's primarily led by black folks. That Amazon campaign is led by black folks. Their president is a reverend in the Southern Baptist Church, a historically black Southern Baptist church.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me the people that we wanted to recruit if we're going to do successful organizing is he asked me, "Do we have any black church ladies? Do we have any black church ladies at the warehouse?" And he started asking me stuff like that. Do we have churchy folks? Um, and he just made like so many insights and educated me about liberation theology and how the black community has used this religion and turned it into something that works for them.
Yeah.
Of course, you have great examples like Jesse Jackson.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, yeah, man. Like, yeah, like DSA, man. They want to be successful. They gotta, yeah, you gotta talk to everybody. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you just can't be enclosed like that. Like, yeah. Um, what are I know this question gonna be kind of wacky, but what are your thoughts on the 2024 election?
Oh God. I mean, so
Mm,
I love the uncommitted movement and everything like that. I love, I'm not voting for Harris. Obviously,
yeah,
I'm not even voting for Jill Stein. I'm just leaving that thing blank. I'm
I
leaving
don't,
it blank.
I don't blame
Um,
you.
what I say to like leftists is that specifically where I come from sort of informs a lot of my political insights around Democrats. In Kentucky, we sort of have a different kind of Democrat that's emerging. It's like the Andy Bashir type of Democrat. Andy Bashir has this democratic way about him where it's sort of old school. It's like he brought the working class politics of Appalachia back into Democrat, but he also kept the politics that value marginalized folks, right?
Hmm.
And unfortunately, like Kentucky's been such a Republican stronghold. We call it Ruby Red Kentucky
Yeah.
because it has been completely dominated by we had the Congress, we had the governor, completely Republican for like 20 years, right? And did so much fucking damage to our state. Me
Obviously, yeah.
me losing, everybody losing half of their unemployment benefits in the year 2023, um, and having to apply for more jobs to be eligible for unemployment and prove it. That was a result of Republicans doing this shit. They recently criminalized homelessness. They recently criminalized bail funds from helping people out for bails of a limit above more than $5,000. Um,
Wow.
Bails are usually expensive.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Most
yeah,
bails are more than 5 grand.
yeah.
They've made it to where no city can pass an ordinance that restricts costs of rent, right? And that's
Wow.
literally a reaction to the success of now PSL and the organizations in Louisville, Kentucky. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
they're amazing. They're amazing. So there's this tenants union in Louisville, Kentucky that is combined with PSL and a lot of the other groups, and they almost got the city to limit, like, put a cap on rent.
That's good.
And
That's
they
good,
were
man.
fighting these big landlord housing developers. They still are, but that's what sparked the new legislation preventing cities from doing that. And this is the
Mm-hmm.
party. This is supposedly the party of small government, right? But they
Yeah, small gov. Yeah.
absurd.
Oh
Kentucky
man.
Kentucky is sort of the ideological formation of these right wingers because you think about it, Mitch McConnell's from here,
Yeah.
Ron Paul, you have Jefferson Davis, the president of the Confederacy,
Yeah. Oh yeah,
from
yeah.
Kentucky. All so many of the daughters of the Confederacy who controlled the education of the South and made us have this revisionist view of history. You know, the lost cause theory
Yeah.
of the Confederacy. Like
Mm-hmm.
all these
Yeah.
groups came from around here. And so to us, I still work within progressive organizations. I still want to get Kentucky Democrats elected. It's all about local politics for me. It's all about
Yes.
it's all about community politics and all that stuff. And I really just don't want to have to engage in national politics, especially when it comes to that big election where your vote doesn't even fucking matter.
It don't matter. Yeah. Yeah.
Like you have all of these Democrats that are doing the vote shaming all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yes.
they don't even realize Hillary Clinton in 2016 she had 3 million more votes than Trump. 3 million, but Trump had
Hello.
the Electoral College, and
Yeah.
so about what like 70 electoral votes are worth more in this country than
70.
three
Yep.
million people.
Yep.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
what good does that fucking what?
Unless you live in a
Yeah.
unless you live in a swing state, like you really just could just stay home. Like I was just telling you that. Like Louisiana is gonna go Trump. Like it don't. My vote don't matter. Like I'm gonna vote for Jill Stein. But I mean, again, I just want her to get the 5%. But
Mm.
again, like if you like, again, like if you don't live in a swing state, your vote don't matter.
No.
just
So I just tell people to vote where it counts. Votes where it actually makes a difference. Like in
yeah,
Kentucky, like in my district, I get to vote for my Supreme Court justice. I get to vote for a Supreme Court justice.
yeah,
In the state Supreme Court.
yeah.
That's up for election. We have Amendment 2 and Amendment 1. Those are both constitutional amendments that are on the ballot. Amendment
Hmm.
2, if that goes through, that will give that will give public money to private schools. It's called a private school voucher program. And whenever that happens, like when it happens in other states, they start defunding public education.
That's yeah.
That's sort of the trick
That
of these Republicans is they make public schools shitty so that they can justify getting rid of them entirely.
yeah. Yeah. Republicans, yeah. They want to like I think Trump said he wanted to defund schools. So you
Yeah.
know,
He wants to
yeah,
get rid of the Department of Education.
yeah, yeah, entirely.
Hmm.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's why I
So,
always tell
like,
people. You go ahead.
as much as like liberals and conservatives, as much as they frustrate me, I don't really have much of a choice but to try and work with them to some degree on the things that we agree on and build
Yeah,
community and try to change their mind. But a lot of leftists in blue states, they are shielded from the consequences
yeah,
of the
exactly.
GOP. So
They are.
my message to leftists who live in blue states is you better keep up that militancy. You better
Yeah,
keep up that militancy of punishing Kamala and everything like that. You need to keep up that militancy because when people in Appalachia start dying at exponential numbers, we're gonna be like, "Where are you at? Are you gonna come out of your comfy little place in your blue state, having your abortions and everything? Are you gonna
yeah,
come and help us?"
yeah. Same in Louisiana, man. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, the red, the Delta part. Like, yeah, like I think that's what a lot of leftists in blue states don't understand. Like we actually we surrounded by a bunch of conservatives and extreme right wingers. Like I want to organize along with I want to organize with them. To change their mind to radicalize them. It
Hmm.
ain't gonna be easy. You ain't gonna radicalize everybody, but if I radicalize 3 or 4 people out of 20, I think I done something right. So
Right. Yeah, one of the things that and you sort of have to keep your politics a secret a lot of the time. Like,
true.
I can't even go around expecting that people will use my pronouns they them. I can't expect people to validate my existence as a non-binary person, as a queer person, where I live, because you're just not gonna get your way. You're
Oh
not
no.
gonna get the respect you deserve. One of the things Amazon did to sort of like make people like afraid of me is somehow during the campaign it got revealed that I had communist tendencies, and that
Wow.
I was outed. I was outed without my consent. I was not an open non-binary and queer person at the time, and somehow I got outed at my warehouse. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. Wow.
They will do that to you if you're too radical in an area where people don't think the same way.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if FedEx do me like that one day. Saying
Mm,
that, yeah, we gotta get you out of here, man. Yo, yeah, yo, we don't like the way you talk. I'm like, hey, hey, be prepared for a lawsuit. Tell you that,
mm.
motherfucker.
Yeah,
uh,
if I could give some advice to anybody who's looking to organize a union or something like that, um, you always want to leave you always want to leave breadcrumbs of evidence that support like your case if you ever do have to go to trial. You want to be, there's always a temptation to be secretive whenever you first start a union campaign. But when you're secretive, that doesn't really work to your advantage because
mm-hmm.
um, nobody really keeps secrets. There's
Yeah,
always a blabbermouth somewhere. There's always somebody who's gonna learn about what
Inf-
you're doing, and
infiltrator,
they're gonna go and gossip. They're gonna
infiltrator.
like like you could have somebody like we had this one person who we were talking to who was like incapable of lying because they were autistic. They couldn't keep secrets or anything like that, right? It was just this
Mm-hmm.
person's personality and how autism showed up in them. Um, but yeah, that person was like a big blabbermouth at like the facility.
Oh
Anybody
goodness.
anybody can go and be a blabbermouth and say things, or they can just say it to somebody they think it's in confidence, and then that person goes and tells everybody. So when you're organizing a union, you want to be loud and proud. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you need to have that supporting evidence, and you need to have a majority of people on your side. Majority unionism is what we call it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
What advice will you give to people that like the typical like propaganda is that I don't want to join a union because I might lose my job or I might lose my benefits. Like, what do you say to people like that to
Mm,
convince them that a union do work?
mm. They don't want to lose their job or their benefits. Um, a lot of the time I would try to convince them of the legal ramifications that they do have, of the ramifications that they can always bring co-workers in as witnesses on their cases. And I would always tell them that you're going to lose your job and your benefits anyways because
Exactly.
the company's looking to fire you, like
Yeah,
at all
exactly.
times. This is every company these days. They're always
Yeah.
looking just to get rid of you as soon as possible. You just have to give them the excuse. But if you and your coworkers get together and you become sort of a popular movement in your workplace, they can't fire all of you.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's good advice, man.
and if you have coworkers that would rather go to a different workplace instead of staying and fighting for something to unionize, the fact is they're just going to be exploited somewhere else, and probably
Yeah.
worse because they've shown they don't have a backbone.
Yeah. That's true, man.
Mm.
100%. I agree with that, man. Yeah. Well, I tell people you can't live in fear, man. you gotta take risk. Joining a union. Hopefully, it works together. It's a risk, but you hope everybody hopes for the reward at the end. So yeah.
But also on the left, like there's a huge tendency to make unions sort of the center of everything. Like the make unions the end all be all to all.
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
really center unions because the labor aristocracy, the people who run the unions, they don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about Palestine. Unions are still insanely corrupt. So don't center unions, but be willing to 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 find the right people within the unions. So that the people who are organizing for reform. So like if you look at the Teamsters, they have a new reform caucus called Teamsters Mobilize, and it's run by communists, and it's run by like the part timers who got fucked over in every contract that
Hmm.
UPS has had. Every every concessionary contract where the union hasn't enforced anything, any of the words on paper. UPS trucks still don't have fucking air conditioning. They were
Wow.
supposed to get air conditioning this year,
Yeah.
and the union hasn't done anything about that.
It's
Yeah,
crazy, man. That's crazy. Yeah.
there's like maybe there's a couple of unions that are like primarily black folks that are radical, and one of those, if you live in North Carolina or South Carolina, there is the Union of Southern Service Workers. Now, um, if you look at Waffle House and all the union stuff that's going on there, um, that's Union of Southern Service Workers. That's them.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
this
That's
primarily black workers organization that is taking on capitalism and colonialism and everything. So
yeah.
those are the radicals you want to center if you're going to look at the labor movement.
Yeah. Um. My final question for you. Then I usually do closing questions. Do you think a general strike can work?
Um, it all depends on how it's organized, right? I think a general strike around rent, around tenants issues, are more plausible than a general strike around union issues. I really
Okay.
do. I really do.
100% agree.
Like we have unions that call for general strike. We had Chris Smalls. He called for a general strike. We have Sean Fain calling for a general strike. Sean Fain from the UAW. And they're not about that life. I'm sorry, but they're not.
Hey, going on Chris Miles, man. You told me in the backstage. You told me some things that I didn't even know. Like,
Mm.
yeah, yeah. If you want to elaborate on them.
Yeah, and those are things that like you know. So Chris Smalls originally started out as this regular associate at Amazon. He worked his way up to being sort of an assistant manager. And then whenever the coronavirus pandemic came along, and Chris really did fight. He created what was called the Congress of Essential Workers,
Hmm.
and he went out and got fired allegedly for using a cuss word, right? When he was
Wow.
protesting for proper PPE. It wasn't just him who got fired that day. It was like three or four Amazon employees, but that doesn't
Hmm.
that didn't get the spotlight. They didn't
Yeah.
get the spotlight. It was Chris.
Hmm.
They made Chris sort of the center of the Amazon campaign. At first, it was for good reason because he was doing so many excellent things. He
Right.
was he was sleeping outside at the bus stop every day, feeding people, giving people what they needed. Like he was pretty much a mutual aid organizer at that time. There really weren't many unions that wanted to take on Amazon. Um, there were other socialist organizations who sent like what we call salts, so socialists in the workplace. They get a
Mm-hmm.
job at the workplace specifically to help them unionize, right? A
Right.
lot of salts came to that Amazon facility because of the importance of that warehouse and that campaign. But soon after, Chris Smalls started meeting with Democrats like Bernie Sanders, AOC. Um, he started revealing himself to be very egotistical, very, very power hungry, right?
I noticed that too. Yeah.
And a lot, the reform movement within Amazon didn't get a lot of media coverage. That's why some people still think Chris Smalls is a good dude, is because they haven't read any articles
Yeah, I thought he
about,
was today.
yeah. And one of the biggest challengers to Chris Smalls was a former executive named Heather Goodall. She led an Amazon campaign in Albany, New York, um, not too far away from Staten Island. You know, Chris Smalls never came out there to visit them. Eventually, they started getting wise to that, and they had some criticisms of Chris Smalls. It cost them the union election.
Wow.
There was even an Amazon facility right across the street from JFK 8 that Chris Smalls used to work at. And he couldn't be bothered to visit them and to address their criticisms and their questions and concerns. And Chris Smalls being so busy being a celebrity cost us
Mm-hmm.
so many victories that could have been in our hands. Um,
Yeah.
and now it's sad that, yeah, Chris Smalls is out of power now, but he did so much damage. Amazon employees don't really trust the Amazon labor union, and now we're at the mercy of the Teamsters
Oh
everywhere.
my. Oh
Every
wow.
Amazon union is at the mercy of the Teamsters. And so we just left one fight for another. So if we want the Teamsters to do what we want, now these Amazon unions are gonna have to fight them too.
Oh my goodness, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I this I learned this too a long time ago. This is why I think the media centered him around the Amazon union era. Well,
Mm-hmm.
not union era, but union movement. And I think that was a mistake. I think
Mm-hmm.
you know it should have been all of the workers together, not just one guy. And
Mm-hmm.
especially the Democrats too. They got a big play in this as well. Yeah, man. I didn't even know because I remember Chris Small was on Bad Faith podcast with Brianna Joy Gray, and I think he was going off on some leftists calling him out and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I
Yeah,
didn't know that side of.
he everybody who would give him a little bit of criticism, he would just come out and say they're racist. He would just
Yeah,
come out and say very horrible things about them. Like they never had a valid reason to oppose him. Like
yeah.
Chris Smalls literally there's literally a video of him fighting another Amazon employee. Him
Wow.
him and Derek Palmer jumped this employee. So this employee like wanted Chris to address his criticisms, wanted to talk to Chris and all that stuff, and it eventually turned into those two like cussing each other out and stuff like that over text message. And then
Mm-hmm.
one day Chris just came out and jumped this dude at the bus stop. And Derek
Wow.
Derek Palmer grabbed this dude by his arms, like put him in a hold like this, and Chris was throwing haymakers at him.
Oh man, that is
Yeah.
he should be in jail for that. That's fucking assault.
Oh well, Derek Palmer was a domestic abuser. He
Oh.
he was convicted of beating his wife. Yeah, and I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Oh, I said that's fucked up.
Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah, man. I didn't even know that, man. Like,
Mm.
hopefully, I hope the Amazon labor union. I hope they could bounce back on their feet, man. Like, you know,
Hmm.
A lot of organizations have pitfalls. Even our network, like we had infiltrators, and stuff like that, or infiltrator,
Hmm.
but like I learned this by working in an organization. Like it's not good to center things around one person.
Hmm.
That's why that ATP network, it's all of us. It's not just me or Tired Peasant or I don't want to be centered, and I don't want to be the major guy. I want everybody to eat. That's why we call the
Yeah.
voice for the voiceless. Yeah.
Well, I do want to say one thing about it is a little bit more nuanced than that because in a workplace, so many people are scared, right? And so there's going to be like a few people that are actually willing to speak to the media. And so that is an unfortunate situation. Like at my warehouse, there were only like two of us that were actually willing to speak to the media. Um, and other people spoke to the media anonymously, but the media doesn't really like to report anonymous stuff. Like when you get something to the media, it has to make it through the editors, right? And
Right.
so if people look at my link tree, they can see podcasts I've been on, shows I've been on where I've exposed Chris Smalls, had other employees to expose Chris Smalls. There's like this one interview that I did with Indie Left News. You're familiar with them? And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. They're
yeah,
they're a friend.
I did one with them where we had several Amazon employees on, and we all talked about like what was going on, why things were not going according to plan, how Chris was holding us back, and I got to give a shout out though to Heather Goodall, that person I mentioned earlier. She always had my back. She got kicked off of the executive committee of the Amazon Labor Union because she dared to challenge Chris Smalls, and she stood up for us in Kentucky.
That's dope, man.
When I got fired and Chris was leaving us behind, couldn't even share my GoFundMe,
Yeah, you told me
couldn't
that.
do
That's crazy.
anything. And Heather Goodall got kicked off the committee because she raised a fuss about it, and she advocated for us. But today, like a week ago, maybe she was fired. She was fired from Amazon. She's a disabled worker.
Wow.
She's a disabled worker who got fired, and now she really needs our help. She has
Okay.
a GoFundMe that people can contribute to. I put it at the top of my link tree.
Yeah, I'm gonna check it out, man. I'm gonna promote it on Twitter as much as possible. I'm trying to get a couple other people too as well.
Mm.
Yeah, man. That's what mutual aid all about. Community. When one of us is down and out, man. Community rise that person up. So,
Mm.
um,
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say that's one thing I really like about like the Starbucks Workers Union is they always had a focus on mutual aid and a focus on solidarity. Like, Pride Month last year, Starbucks was not letting them put flags and anything else in the Starbucks facilities themselves, in the coffee shops themselves. Out of solidarity with the queer community, these workers kept going on wildcat strikes. That's a strike without permission, strike without the union's permission. They kept going on these strikes. The Starbucks Workers United was the first union to call for boycotts against Starbucks over Palestine. And
yeah.
however, we still see the contradiction in that union. They're bargaining with Starbucks right now. They're bargaining, and the union itself, because it is SEIU, Service Employees International Union, one of the largest unions, they're bargaining differently from what the workers want. They're trying to get these no strike clauses. They're promoting this language about working with the company.
So
And the,
basically,
and the workers hate that. The workers hate that
yeah.
because Starbucks is a diverse and mostly kind of progressive, left leaning workforce. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah. Yeah, I hate that too, man. To be honest with you, um, like why would you want to be on the side of Starbucks? You know, you got a powerful union, yeah. A year or two ago, I kept my eye on the Starbucks union workers too.
Mhm.
Yeah, they did a lot of good things, man. So got some closing questions for you, Matt. The first one is, what are five dinner guests you would invite? Dead or alive.
Five what delegates?
Dinner guest.
Oh my god. I get Fanon. I'd get Huey Newton. I'd get Leonard Peltier. I'd get I really want to talk. I really want to talk to Jay Sakai.
Okay.
And hmm, the last one. The last one's always the hardest, right?
It is. It is.
I I'd want to talk to like maybe an old school like IWW era unionist from Appalachia because like I want to talk to them. I want to learn how they did it because yeah, I'm always so inspired by like what they did because Appalachia used to be such a revolutionary area,
Yeah.
right? You used to have
Oh
all these
yeah.
coal miners. It didn't matter what race they were organizing. And that was the tactics of the old school IWW, the old school United Mine Workers of America. They were really different. They were willing to kill the boss. The boss would just go missing in a holler somewhere.
Oh shit, man, that's how I need to be now, man. Like the workers, so these workers, man, like the one I told you, the ones that are scared to unionize, like they just don't know how much power they have. Like if we only just come together, like these motherfuckers should be scared of us. Not the
Mhm.
opposite. So yeah, man, that's a good five, man. Second question is, what's your favorite comfort foods?
Oh man. So a lot of people don't know this about me, but I've always been really interested in culinary. So I
Okay.
wanted to go to culinary school at one time. I almost joined the military to be a chef. Um,
Oh
Glad I never went there, but
yeah.
yeah, I've always had a passion for culinary, and so when I'm always trying new foods, and so there's this place in Kentucky. It's called Slim Chickens, and
Oh
they
yeah, I know
have
about that.
and they have this buffalo mac and cheese bowl with like fried onions
Yeah,
and
yeah.
everything. Oh man,
It is so good.
I
Yeah.
gotta say, every time I eat that, it's amazing.
It is, man. Yeah. I should have went to Slim Chickens before I got on this podcast. I'll probably go tomorrow, man. Oh man. Okay. Where do you see Matt 10 years from now? That's the next.
10 years from now, hopefully we've built up a community organization. We're working on building a chapter of Food Not Bombs. I'm working with a local union campaign at a campus. I've been working with them for quite some time. It's really great. It's a lot of radical students, but also the actual facilities workers have joined in too. So it's student workers, it's students, and it's like janitorial people, stuff like that. And so, I hope that we build up something where we can have a community garden, maybe a workers cooperative, and just some community power, right? So we're able to feed people every day. I want to be able to feed people every day, feed and clothe people, and organize unions and do shit that really matters.
Exactly. That's dope, man.
Mhm.
That's dope. Um, the last question. Which person would you want to see on Tea Time, but you have to convince them to come on to the show?
Mm. you know, I think I'd like to see Black Red Guard on. I
Okay.
love that dude.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be dope. Okay. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't
that'd be
think
an
it would take a whole lot of convincing.
Oh yeah, that'd be dope, man. Okay. Well, Matt, man, I really enjoyed this, man. We could go on, man, but it was a great conversation with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Loved
Yeah.
loved chatting, and I'm just so glad you were able to make this available for me.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, yeah, man. We the voice of the voiceless, and again, I apologize, Ty Peasant. She wasn't able to come on.
Mm.
Internet issues, computer issues. Shit always happens, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
hopefully,
I was having some issues myself before we started.
I I know. Yeah, I was too. My EV Mute's been lagging on me. I think because of my internet. So
Mm.
I'm trying to get fiber internet installed, and they haven't came out to my house yet to install it.
Mm.
So yeah. I think everybody's having some trouble wise on technology.
Yeah, we're sort of like that in my area because like Spectrum recently like took over most of the business, and
Yeah,
Spectrum is shit. They are shit. They are unreliable.
yeah,
Oh, I totally understand.
yeah. Xfinity, man. Like I
Mm.
hate those dudes, man. They like they give you okay. I'm supposed to have a gigabit internet, but when I do an internet speed test, it'd be like 570 some megabits.
Oh
Like
no.
that's not a gig. That's not a gig.
Mm.
Okay, at least 900 megabits. That's close. 500, like, and I'm paying $100 a month. Like, man, I just can't wait to leave those those guys.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay, man. Okay. Where can people find you again? Just
So on social media, like pretty much all of my usernames are decolonize unions underscore ky. Some of them say like Union Batty Matt. If you can't find that
okay.
username, but usually you find the username before you find the at, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, check out my podcast. You'll get all of the tea on Chris Smalls and everything in my community. You'll find links to support the strike fund for the college workers I mentioned. You'll
Okay.
find reform caucuses, other organizers who need support and mutual aid. Um, yeah, other organizations that are really good. I have this repository of mutual aid organizations. It's a Notion page. And so it has mutual aid organizations. It even has resources for sex workers. It has resources for your local community fridges and other things that you need. And especially um, some of the more successful projects that sort of mimic what I want to see on the left, like
Yeah.
like communes, like self-sufficient communities, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, which are always really neat to me. However, we don't need those like hippie communes that used to exist in the '60s, where they just like grow food and smoke weed and they just lived out all to themselves. We need people's communes that provide
Oh.
resources and housing and organize. You know,
Yeah. Oh
yeah.
yeah. Yeah. We sure do need that, man. Um. Um. Oh yeah. By the way, I have a podcast myself called Real Recognize Real.
Mm,
I wouldn't mind. It would be an honor to invite you to come on, man. Like we could talk more about the Chris Small stuff and
mm.
labor unions.
Yeah, I definitely like to talk about more about the emergency workplace organizing center and more about
Yeah.
sort of the practical things that you can do to create alternative power systems, whether it be within a union, whether it be within the DSA or any other type of community, or any other type of organization, right?
Yeah.
Because that's important that we build up something that has tangible resources because you can't really make something from nothing. That's like during our Amazon campaign, we had set up a nonprofit so that we could actually raise funds to
Yeah.
support our campaign. That's like an example of something you have to do, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. 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 You got to. Yeah. You got to. Yeah. Yeah. That's just like mutual aid. Yeah. Like how the Black Panthers fed folks. They raised funds.
Mhm.
Fed people. Free school breakfast. Like, yeah, man. I love to talk about all this stuff with you on my other podcast. So All right, Max. I mean Matt. Thank you again for coming on, man. Have a good day, man.
Absolutely. You too. Take care.
All right, man.